Silver investors ready for some good news. And I have that for you this morning. $330 silver. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's check on the silver price right now because unbelievably, we had an awesome night last night. Let's go out to Pimbex and just do a quick update on the gold and silver price. Wow. Gold, $2,350. Silver, $30.40. We are moving in the right direction. And guys, this live stream, this video is not possible without the support of our sponsors, including Pimbex, Pimbex. Next time you're looking to buy some gold, silver, or platinum, check out Pimbex. You'll find they have great selection, great service, and their prices are hard to beat. You really will get more metal for your money with Pimbex. But let's move over here to the other important news of the day. So we know silver's up in the United States, but what do you say we head over to China? Or would you believe me if I told you, my basement dweller, and by the way, thank you for being here. Our sponsors are important, but none of this would be possible without you. Number one, you're number one. I hope you feel like you're part of a group when you're here in the basement, because you are. Like you found a new home where we love a little home, a little basement, where we love to talk about silver and gold. But let's go over to China just to get an update. What's going on with the silver price in China? Our good friend here, the Oriental Ghost, who will someday be a guest here in the basement, shows us, look at this, guys, silver AG on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, $34.24, up 3.5%. Okay? And just as good, if not a little better, on the Shanghai Futures Exchange, $34.29, up 3%. Looks like the vault levels are still significantly low. So we'll keep an eye on this, but it's becoming very interesting to see what is happening. They're calling this the arbitrage between the U.S. markets and the Chinese markets, which are accounting for this massive difference. Why all these, look, think about it. If you could buy silver in the United States for $30 an ounce and ship it over to China and sell it for $34 an ounce, don't you think there's some profit-oriented traders out there who are doing just that and doing just that right now? The metal is moving to the east. But what about $330 silver? I was thinking last night, and I want to share this with you as I looked at our good friend, and we're going to talk more about this later. And by the way, guys, in a few minutes here, we're going to be joined by Adam Van, possibly a fan favorite, also Pat Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and Daniel Diaz. They're at a big festival going out in New Hampshire, and they've got a lot of we're going to talk about the Fed. We're going to talk about gold and silver. We're going to talk about it all. It's going to be great. That'll be just in a few minutes. But before we, hold on. Sorry about that. Before we get to that, let's talk about $330 silver. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We're going to go to the U.S. debt clock, one of our favorite. Where's the secret door? I can't find it anymore. Anyway, okay, sure. Look, soon we're going to be able to celebrate nice round number, $35 trillion in debt. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're talking about the silver price and how we get to 330. Here is the dollar to silver ratio. It's going up, guys. What that means, that measures for each ounce that's dug up out of the ground every year, each ounce of silver, 1 ounce. For each 1 ounce, there's $165 of new money being created. Unicorn fart dust, paper money, whatever you want to call it. It takes the M2 money supply, which is right here. You can see my yellow finger, okay? It takes the growth, as you can see, that's going up and up and up. That takes the 165 is the growth in the M2 money supply, and that's divided by the number of ounces of silver being produced annually. So again, for each 1 ounce of silver that the mining companies are able to produce each year, there's 165 paper, unicorn fart dust, electronic, fiat, whatever you want to call it, Keynesian, fractional reserve banking dollars being created. Now, how did I get to $330? Well, it dawned on me last night, and I'll be interested to get your take on this as well. Half of that silver, and likely even more that's coming out of the ground, is being sucked up and being taken away for good, right? Being used in the defense industry. We have no idea how much silver is actually used in the defense industry. We know hundreds of millions of ounces being used by the photovoltaic, right? The solar energy industry. What about all these artificial intelligence? So anyway, half of that silver is being used up. So I think the number is actually twice the 165. If you account for the fact that half of that silver, right, probably at least it's coming out of the ground, is going bye-bye for good. That's how we get to $330 silver, if not even higher. I mean, let's be real. We know people like, I heard Lynette Zhang when she was on my show, and I've heard her say it recently several times, is talking about the prospect of $2,000 silver. When you account for all the debt in the system, when you account for what it would take to really back all the make-believe synthetic money, debt, credit that's out there, you're easily looking at silver prices that could go way, way higher. I think silver could go to infinity. Right. And I know I get criticized sometimes for saying that, but if you're going to measure it in something that has an infinite possible supply, the price is infinitely possibly high as well. So a lot going on there. Other big story breaking yesterday. Okay. What financial crisis? Remember the 2008 financial crisis? We got a big story breaking out of Japan, and I'm gonna give you some information. I got this from Rafi Farber at the Endgame Investor. He wrote this: Japanese bank Norin Chukin is going to sell $63 billion of U.S. bonds due to losses. Right, the value of the bonds has cratered. Rafi said that will probably trigger a bond selling avalanche from foreign treasury holders to front run the announcement, right? Other people are going to hear like, oh my gosh, this big Japanese bank, but it's very interesting when you consider this. They hold about 20% of all foreign bonds held by Japanese banks. 20%. This is a big deal, a big bank. And I think Rafi even said, like, I never heard of it till yesterday. That's what a black swan is. Just saying, right? Never thought about this, never thought about that. Well, that's what this is. How do you think the banks in Japan holding the other 80% of the bonds are going to react to this news, right? They're going to dump probably nothing, is what he says jokingly, right? Because when the other banks know that the one of the biggest holders is going to be selling massive amounts of bonds, they're going to front run it. They're going to get out too. And think about this: those other banks holding the other 80%, they also have major losses. So we got to keep a close eye on what's going on with this Japanese bank. This could be a major financial news event. And what do major financial news events, major financial crisis, when they pop up, what does that do? Right? That moves the price of silver and gold significantly higher. Okay. You know what, guys? I think our friends at are ready for us. Hold on a second. We're going to be joined here. Looks like I see Daniel Diaz. Let me see if I can pull up our friends from New Hampshire. Hey, guys. Patrick?
Hey, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect. Hello.
Hey.
We have Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and we have Daniel Diaz from Citizens for Sound Money. How's it going, guys?
Good. And Adam will be here shortly.
There's Adam.
We'll be joined by Adam Van from Alpine Gold.
Yeah. Yep. Let me adjust the camera a little bit because we got Adam Van.
Adam Van, yeah.
Adam Van, the man. He's Mr. Goldback.
That's right, Mr. Goldback and Pat, Missouri Freedom Initiative, right? Moving all this important legislation through the process to give U.S. citizens the right, state citizens the right to use gold and silver as legal tender. And you guys are up in New Hampshire. I was just showing the U.S. debt clock a few seconds ago. We're going to have have a big party soon, because looks like we're going to be hitting 35 trillion before we know it. I don't think it'll happen during our live stream here today, but it's going to happen real soon.
Very soon.
Well, there's a storm coming today at 4 o'clock. I think it may be related.
There you go. There you go. So you guys are there. Big festival, PORCFEST 2024, libertarian-oriented festival, as I understand, and a lot of talk about gold and silver as real money. So when we look at this debt clock, guys, and we look at what's going on with the debt clock, and we look at what's going on with the Fed, and I've got a slide I want to share with all three of you here a little bit later regarding what Woodrow Wilson had to say about the Fed. What's your feel? What are you getting? What's your feeling on the ground there about how people are feeling about, I guess, the Fed, the monetary system, and how we can use silver and gold to protect ourselves?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of big fans here. I think there's a lot of big fans. Reserve, and I think they're really happy with the way that economics are going and the monetary system. I think it's overall a consensus. A lot of people here are really into sound money of all types, gold and silver, bitcoins, and any kind of decentralization of the monetary system. So it's a very gold and silver rich environment. There's a lot of people here making gold. You have a couple silver mints that are here. We've got those little tabs that you break off. There's just a lot of sound money here. As far as the Fed, I think that the cat came out of the bag back in 2008 with Ron Paul. He's also going to be at this event. I think on Saturday he's going to be speaking. And I think the cat came out of the bag in 2008 whenever he kind of exposed the Fed for being a private company, and this community specifically really took off with it, and really made it stick. So a lot of folks don't realize that they're a private company and that they're influencing our monetary system. But that's kind of the consensus around here, is that the Fed is probably messing things up. And the real solution is sound money, decentralized sound money. Gold and silver is the ones that we like. We like gold and silver, and because that's a tangible, physical asset that's accepted all over the world, and that's what we try to push here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, most of the people here are libertarians and or anarcho-capitalists who just do not like fiat currency in itself. You know, they talk about how we used to have money when the currency was backed by gold and silver, but immediately after, we've had multiple conversations with people who have come into the Sound Money Market tent, which Alpine Gold and Citizens for Sound Money has sponsored this year, which is right next to the main stage where they have all the talking engagements. But pretty much the entire time that we've been here at PORCFEST, you know, this is my first PORCFEST. This is Patrick's first PORCFEST. This is your fourth?
I've been here about 6 times.
Six PORCFEST, and you know what? It's for us first timers. It's actually a lot less chaotic than we were expecting.
I agree.
We're expecting a bunch of anarchists and libertarians who are rebellious, but that's not the case at all. They're actually it's kind of like a family here.
Yeah, it's a real tight-knit community. It's a lot of tribes. You know, you got the homeschooling tribes, you got the sound money tribes, you got the Bitcoin tribes and the crypto tribes. And we all just kind of get together. It's unified under liberty and freedom.
Yeah.
It's 2,000 to 3,000 diehard leave me aloneists that converge in Lancaster.
And what I love is that most of the people here, there's over 1,000 people. I don't know how many tents and RVs, but everybody's selling their own thing, and they take Goldbacks.
That's right. They take Goldbacks and they do barter. The meat guy trades with the milk guy and different things. So we've got several small farms here that are raising eggs, and they're raising meats. You can go to the top of the hill and you can go see the people from the domes, and they've got a ton of meat up there that they're trading gold and silver for, and cryptos and things like that. And the whole community is just set up that way is how it is. And we do it every year. And it's actually, it's not necessarily just this event. This is how a lot of New Hampshire works. This is how a lot of the Free State Project works, is that there's a lot of tribes in New Hampshire, and they're all doing their own clique, you know, and leaving people alone and respecting boundaries and kind of just creating their own commerce and their own community. And there's a lot of barter. There's a lot of gold. There's a lot of silver trades. We've got, you know, silversmiths over in Goffstown, local silver mint, you know, and he's always producing silver rounds, and it's all part of a big barter system amongst the farms and the producers.
Yeah.
And we're all using sound money for that.
And
So-
we okay, go ahead.
Well, so
Yeah.
so as I'm hearing this, I'm getting this feeling like that little microcosm of what you have going on up there in New Hampshire actually represents people using real money, sound
right.
money. As
everything.
and then when I look at when I think of the other side of the equation, like where I am here right now in suburban St. Louis with my paper money or my electronic money, and I want to go to the grocery store, I want to go, living the typical standard, let's say, suburban life, that everything I'm using is like credit and fake and nothing, right? And it's working for now.
Yeah.
It's working for now because everybody believes in it, right? It's based on nothing but confidence and the value. The only value that it really represents is just that idea that it'll maybe worth something again tomorrow. Whereas when I think of what you're doing there now, dealing with real money, and I look back to how our country used to be, right? Because we had over 150 years in this country where we did have our money backed by gold and silver. It feels much more organic. It feels, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but it feels like a much more fair, level playing ground when I think of using, real money and sound money. Is that a safe assessment?
I think so.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is a debt-based system. You're having to suffer with a debt-based system, and that's fine if you're big into investing and you can outrun inflation. But when you work, you get traded your labor in paper dollars, and then society owes you a debt, and that's what that debt-based note is for. And then whenever you come here and you trade in New Hampshire and you trade, at PORCFEST, you're trading sound money, and sound money typically goes up in value over time. So your wealth and your labor is preserved in those precious metals.
It's a deflationary currency.
That's right.
I'd like to say something real quick, Ron.
Yeah.
We've been doing live streams here, and I'm sure you knew about that. And we have a camera that points towards, Alpine Gold, because holy mackerel, it's usually a steady stream of people coming in to buy Goldbacks. They know about Goldbacks here. It's a big deal. So it's a real honor, that Citizens for Sound Money is partnered with Alpine Gold, and to be in the same tent. That gets us a little bit of exposure too, but that's Mr. Goldback right over there, and he's very well known, very popular, and his table over here is very busy.
Yeah. And I don't know if I introduced Adam when he came in, but Adam is with Alpine Gold up in New Hampshire. And if Pat leans his head a little bit to the right, I think we can see the Alpine Gold. Other way. There you go. Yeah. Well, there's Alpine. There it is. Okay. Thank you, Pat.
You bet.
Yeah. So we're living in a debt-based system, right? But there are pockets of our country, of our society, that are waking up, and it feels like they're waking up more and more to this idea that you can use real money.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to the Free State Project that's put on PORCFEST. This is technically the 22nd year. It's called PORCFEST 21 because the first PORCFEST, they didn't really have a number. So it's considered PORCFEST 0. And, this PORCFEST is like a microcosm of what they're trying to do with the Free State Project here in New Hampshire. For those that don't know, the Free State Project is a project that was voted on by libertarians around the world, around the country, on where which state they want to move to create, I guess, a libertarian society within a state and to take over state politics. And at PORCFEST, because they're using sound money, and there are people throughout New Hampshire that use Goldbacks and silver. And for example, Silver Eagles, we did our first sale that we did was a Silver Eagle, and we took it in at $2 over spot. Thanks to Adam, helped me out with that conversion ratio there. And then we gave change in Goldbacks, So this is a perfect microcosm of what a society could look like if we get back to sound money. And, people trust it. We joke around, we take dirty fiat. But because everybody else here, they understand Goldbacks, they understand silver, they understand sound money. Bitcoin is a big thing around here. There's some people who only donated to Citizens for Sound Money because we believe Bitcoin is sound money as well. At least I do. And we promote the community, Bitcoin and the Sound Money Crew, where we agree with the crypto groups and the sound money advocates, where we agree is that fiat is slavery, fiat is hurting society, and because we agree on that, we promote sound money together. Bitcoin thinks they're the solution. Gold and silver believe they're the only solution, but we have common ground.
I agree. I don't think it's the only solution. I think gold and silver is one of the pieces of the puzzle that's going to lead to all the freedom. What we need is freedom. We need individual freedom and liberty amongst people. And that's what it's really about. Liberty is freedom from government, and freedom is liberty from individuals. And if we can respect those boundaries, then there's going to be lots of solutions that get us to the right answer. You segue into something interesting about the exchange rate of silver and gold. Whenever you're spending silver and gold, it's a different line of thinking. You got to think about it differently. What's it worth today? What's gold worth versus silver when you're doing trades and whenever you're buying goods? So over at their tent, or over at their table over here, they had some things that someone wanted, and they just had to kind of negotiate and barter a deal with it. But it's a different way of thinking. When you're thinking about your money and you're thinking about your electronic money, your debit cards and so forth, you get in this lazy habit of just spending and spending and spending. And because it's the only thing you know and it's the only thing you do. But then when you're standing there in front of a product, in front of goods and services that you're trying to purchase, and you've got gold in your hand and you got silver in your hand, and you got Bitcoin on your phone, and you're talking to this individual about something they have that you want, now you have to think about, okay, well, which one's going to work better? Is silver up? Is gold up? Is Bitcoin, more tradable?
Sounds very free market to me.
And you think about your money and your wealth totally differently, because it's not automatic, and you have to kind of put some thought into it and put some feeling into it. And it makes a big difference. It makes for a better economy whenever you have more options and more liberty and more freedom.
Yeah.
And
talking of, sorry, I'll just.
That's okay. I was just going to say, and the idea of being able to, I think Pat referred to this, like, go do some work, go earn some quote unquote money. But then at the same time, if you're able to store that in silver and gold, it's not being eaten away by inflation year after year. And I want to throw in another point as well, as we were talking, this idea of using silver and gold as real money. I think we tend to think that it like completely went away, but it didn't completely go away, right? I mean, over the last 100 years in the United States, I think it's been kind of on many different levels diminished. So we feel like that in the USA, which probably is the reason why not a lot of Americans yet are using silver and gold. But the reality is, in the world, gold and silver have always held their held their value over. It really never went away. It went away in the United States, and I'm gonna throw this one out there because I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Number one, and I'll be quick on this one, but with the people up there at Porkfest, and I'm going to pull the website up here in a second to show everybody what's going on up there. But and the people that are joining us today here in the basement for this live stream, we are just a small sliver of the U.S. population, and I like to throw out this idea that that's actually a good thing, because it's a lot easier to grow massively from a very small number to a bigger number. If you go from 1 in 100 people to, let's say, 5 in 100 people, that's a 500% increase. And it's a lot easier to go from 5 in 100, from 1 in 100 to 5 in 100 than it is to go from 25 in 100 to 50 in 100. So we've got like a great opportunity, because we're starting. I mean, we're like the elite, like the Green Berets of the financial world. It was, as we're gold and silver stackers. But my question for you guys is this: why do you think it is that that most Americans, right, the other 99% that aren't at Porkfest, that aren't joining us today, why are they so, I guess for lack of a better term, ignorant to the fact that silver and gold are real money? Like the people I bump into on the street.
Yeah, that goes back to what you were saying. Like, why do Americans? I mean, mainly Americans, right? Because people around the world, India, China, Russia, they still see gold as a sense of money. But in the United States, because the dollar is the primary currency, it was the global currency under the Bretton Woods system, which was backed by gold, and that's, we thought of gold as money until 1971. And then we have an entire generation of Americans or people who have primarily used the dollar that the dollar. They don't know anything but fiat dollar. They don't know anything but fiat as currency or money, quote unquote money, but it's not, because as we know, money and it retains its purchasing power while currency loses its purchasing power because of inflation.
And Ron, you're right. We're the Green Berets out here. We're just as Green Berets. We're the
Navy
only
SEAls,
ones
maybe.
We're allergic
Navy
to
SEAls,
jogging.
yeah.
Green Berets that are allergic to jogging is what that is. Here in New Hampshire, I think it came gold and silver came off the books in 1978. We went up to the Capitol and we were testifying for the Sound Money Act that Citizens for Sound Money was helping push out. It was a big effort by Keith Ammon and Uri that were sponsoring the bill, and I think we made some good headway. We had a lot of really good conversations and good development. It ultimately didn't pass, but we got some good development. And from that, from those conversations, we found out that gold and silver had only been taken off the books in 1978. So this isn't anything, that's that old. It's not that unfamiliar.
Yeah.
The day we were testifying, they were actually taking down the old gold and silver vault that was right behind the building where we were testifying. And I made kind of a joke about it, saying, you're tearing that down, and here we are bringing it back. And but it's not that old. It's people around here do trade in gold and silver quite a bit, and it's not that unfamiliar. It was only a short time, just one people ago, 1971, 1978. It's just one person ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you also mentioned, Ron, that. And typically, people don't see gold and silver today as money. Even Goldbacks. Like I was talking to Benjamin Schaefer of finance.gold. That's PHINANC.gold. He's a general counsel for them, and it's an asset-backed digital currency company that's going to do transactions. And he was talking about how in New Hampshire, it is actually different than any other state that purchases Goldbacks. Most people who buy Goldbacks use it as a store value and a savings or an investment, while here in New Hampshire, they actually use it as currency. It is the most circulated state with Goldbacks for barter. So it's interesting that here in New Hampshire, which is a liberty-minded state that wants to get away from fiat and the enslavement of the current economic system, they're using gold and silver as intended, as currency.
Yeah, and we just started expanding that network too. So in New Hampshire, we have over 100 businesses that are accepting gold and silver as payment, particularly with Goldback, and we have a map of all the featured businesses, and you can find that on alpinegold.com. And we just took over that program. We were only promoting the states that had an actual live Goldback in their state, but we Alpine Gold took that over, and you can now go to alpinegold.com, click on resources, and it's still a little fresh. We're still building it out, but we have resources there to where you can become a merchant, you can find merchants, and we're making it more readily available for the rest of America too. So in New Hampshire, it's pretty common. Utah, it's very common.
Wyoming.
Yeah, Wyoming, they're using it. South Dakota, we've got a branch in South Dakota that Brian runs for us. We've got 2-3 branches in Utah, one in Ogden, Alpine, and Provo. We're going to be putting one in Idaho. We're putting branches in every state, and it's going to become more and more common.
Yeah.
And now we've just taken that over and made it a national program too.
I actually have a question for you, Adam. So let's say, because I know in Florida there are vendors who are wanting to take Goldbacks, but their concern is that they pay their bills in fiat. You have the Alpine Gold here in Manchester. Is the process of, let's say, business owners, is Alpine Gold considered like a bank where they come and bring you Goldbacks, and then you take those Goldbacks and it gets deposited in the UPay? They can convert that to fiat so they can pay their electric bill and everything? How does that system work?
We are not a bank. We are a repository is what we are.
Okay.
We are a repository or a deposit. I don't know the difference between the R and the D, but we're a depository of some sort. And we do have a membership program called the United Precious Metals Association. And that does offer similar services to what traditional banks offer. You can deposit, you can withdraw, you can invest in IRAs, you can open interest-bearing accounts and get 2% interest, and you can also get a debit card, and with that debit card you can liquidate and pay bills and things like that. But we're much more than just a gold vaulting services. We provide many different services for people. We do have that. Bank we're not, to be clear, but a repository we are.
Well, I think my specific question was, let's say these businesses, let's say in Florida they start accepting, you guys open up an Alpine Gold in Orlando. if a business has a lot of Goldbacks that they need to liquidate so they can pay their electrical bill and their staff, well, they'll pay their staff in gold, hopefully. Can they take them to an Alpine Gold location, and then that location would immediately add credit of those Goldbacks to their UPMA account so they can cash that out?
Absolutely. And you don't have to go, you don't have to have an Alpine Gold nearby. You can also mail it to us. Like, there's other ways to get the gold to us.
Perfect.
And then once it gets deposited onto your account, that's an international system. You know, that's a dashboard just like what you're used to with your traditional bank is what that is. But it's a UPMA, you know, user platform. It's a member-to-member exchange. It's a 501c6 member-to-member exchange is what it is. And it does operate. Once you get it on your account, it's an international platform.
There you go.
You can buy, sell, trade, you can exchange, you can get debit cards, and you can pay your employees. You can pay, if your employees have a UPMA account, you can transfer to them gold, and then they can do to it what they want, you know. So the way I use it, I have a recreation club here, and we accept all of our dues in Goldback is what we accept them as. And then anytime they're buying something from the club store or paying their dues or anything like that, they're just transferring. They're just making a gold transfer into my account because they have an account and I have an account, and they just do a transfer. And you can do the same thing in reverse. If I were a company and I were paying somebody some sort of a wage, then you can also pay them through a transfer like that. Now, your bookkeeping is going to change from state to state. Here in New Hampshire, it's a little bit more friendly. You do have unemployment insurance that you have to manage, but there's no income tax. Things are a lot simpler here because there's no sales tax and there's no income tax, and that makes things a whole lot
Hang on,
simpler.
no income tax. You're talking about no capital gains taxes, is that right?
That's
On
right.
gold and silver.
Income tax also. There's no income
There's
tax.
no income tax, and again, there's no capital gains tax on gold and silver.
Okay,
specifically.
Ron, give me a little bit of rope here to talk to our good friend Adam. If I wanted to deal in Goldbacks in the state of Missouri, is that a difficult process? Is that something that would be difficult for someone to do? Or let's say we have a friend in California. Can they set up a Goldback business? Can you talk a little bit about that?
They can absolutely set up a Goldback business and become a merchant and use the UPMA and all of the services that go along with it. How they do their bookkeeping is beyond me.
It varies from state to state.
Yeah, you're going to have to get with your CPA, your tax advisor in California, in Missouri, because I don't know what any of those laws are. I know Florida's more friendly because you guys don't have sales taxes.
No, we have income tax.
Oh, you don't have income taxes there. So
capital gains tax.
Yeah, so that's simpler. But you know, California, who knows what they've got? They're going to start, you know, providing. They're cutting all the trees. No, they're burning all their trees down. They don't want to cut them down, so they burn them down.
But
who knows what they're doing?
In short, anyone can actually be a dealer for Goldbacks.
That's right.
Okay, right. Ron, I think that was an important point to get across to your audience.
Yeah. Now, Ron, let's get it back to you. It's your show. Why don't you?
Yeah,
sorry, Ron.
That's okay, guys. No, it's interesting, and I know my audience has a keen interest in the Goldback, so I appreciate you providing all that clarity. I wanted to touch on this because you all three of you, Pat with Missouri Freedom Initiative, Daniel with Citizens for Sound Money, and Adam with Alpine Gold. You guys are out there working to spread the word, to kind of grow this the sound money gospel, right? Gold and silver, whether it's physical, whether or 10-ounce bars, 1-ounce bars, coins, Goldbacks. What we're trying to do is get the word out. I wanted to come back just briefly to something we talked about earlier, because that's really, I think, as a silver and gold community, I think there's two things that we all want. We all want to be able to use silver and gold more functionally in our day-to-day transactions, but we also want the value, and I think especially with silver, the true value to be recognized. And I wanted to throw out a couple strong words because we touched on this, but I feel like, again, like we are the lone wolves out there, right? And there is so much opportunity for our numbers to grow. Do you think, I guess it's a two-part question, but do you think that if we get hit with another big wave of inflation, and I think, what is inflation? If we're measuring the cost of goods and services in fiat dollars, right, U.S. dollars, it's the devaluation of the dollar. And I think it's inevitable that the dollar is going to go down. Yeah. I think we went through a wave like a year ago, 2 years ago, right, where some people say inflation was as high as 20%. and I want to get your input on this. I think that when we get this next wave of inflation, which just based on the monetary fiscal situation of the United States is inevitable, but then on top of that, you lop in geopolitical worldwide changes with the BRICS and everything else that are going on. Do you think that could be a major catalyst where we see just a wave of, because I think it's almost that old saying, like, fool me once, right? Like, you fooled me once with inflation 2 years ago, and the cost of everything at the grocery store doubled. It feels like over the last couple of years, but that if that starts to happen again, I mean, we already saw it, right, with all these new stackers going to Costco to buy gold and silver. But do you think we could get another big wave of people kind of joining our ranks at that point?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I definitely think so. We had an economist on our broadcast. So for those of you who are listening and want to hear more about what we're doing at PORCFEST, we go live around 12:30 today. We typically do about a 3 to 4 hour live broadcast. Yesterday, we had an economist from the American Institute of Economic Research, AIER, Jason Soren. And we were actually talking about the financial crisis that's going on in real estate, residential and commercial. And and we've talked about this on your show before. Right now, there's a lot of pressure on some of the largest banks in our country. Just about 400 banks are in unrealized losses equaling $900 billion. Four of those banks, the top four, has $400 billion of that $900 billion in unrealized losses and realized losses in real estate. And those loans, I said, were coming due May and June of this year. And what's happening is, and we asked Jason, like, why do you think we're not really seeing many collapses? We saw in May Republic Bank in Pennsylvania collapsing. An article came out by the FAU, my alma mater, that there are 16 major banks that are insolvent right now. And the FDIC knows they're insolvent. The Fed knows that they're insolvent, and they're trying to save these banks. What are they doing? They must be printing currency. They must be pumping currency into these banks to prevent them from collapsing, because, I mean, it's just not possible to have an unrealized or actual realized loss and then have good returns and earnings on their reports every quarter. So something's happening to where they're not collapsing, and that's going to cause inflation. That's what caused inflation in 2008. All the bailouts. That's what started the inflation in 2020 with the stimulus package, where over $1 trillion immediately was given out in stimulus, and also in PPP loans and other low interest business loans that just caused an influx of inflation, and why we have so much inflation right now across the economy.
In fact, I would even add to that by saying, if it weren't for the repo and reverse repo markets, these banks would have failed a long time ago, Ron.
Yeah. I heard in my backgrounds in accounting, I love this term. I heard it after the great financial crisis, right? The reality is we never really paid the price for the great financial crisis in 2008.
Nope.
And there's a term out there called Disneyland accounting. And that's what these banks get to do, right? As an old accountant, that one stuck with me. And I've heard some people say that it's actually almost all the banks are insolvent because they all bought treasuries at these lower rates, and that if no matter what the bank is, if everybody showed up and wanted their money and they had to liquidate all their treasuries, they wouldn't have the money. There's not enough money there, right? So it's really just kind of a situation where we're sitting, as long as everybody doesn't show up and want their money back, the banks don't have to recognize their unrealized losses, because they can say that they're holding those treasuries till maturity, right? As long as they say that, they don't have to recognize that they lost a boatload. And then on top of that, you touched on the commercial real estate situation, and we have example after example. Even yesterday, I showed from the Silver Academy, they had an article about buildings in New York City and Manhattan that are like now being appraised at like half of what they sold for just 2 or 3 years ago. And those banks, that's the other big, ticking time bomb. I think it's important this is not a banking show, but this does relate to silver and gold, because it could have a major impact on the price. Daniel, you said something, you touched on something, but I want to elaborate on it briefly here. Those loans, all those commercial real estate loans, they don't all come due at the same day, right? That's like a rolling process. So as those now are just starting to show up to be refinanced, that's when they are forced to recognize that, hey, this building that we loaned $300 million on 4 years ago is now only worth 40 or 50% of the money we loaned out for it.
Agreed. And and there is a solution, a free market solution out there to alleviate the pressures on the commercial real estate, and it's converting some of these office buildings to residential or multi-family units or condos. But the problem is you have the local counties and local municipalities that this is what Jason Sorens was telling us, is that they don't have they don't have sorry, I got distracted because there were people talking.
They won't from a
zoning,
code.
the zoning. They
Zoning.
don't have the right zoning, and the zoning laws and the restrictions that these counties and municipalities are putting on real estate is preventing the market from actually transitioning and trying to save some of these bad loans, because they could make it into residential because there's not enough low income. Because of the amount of inflation there is, rents have increased. There isn't enough development right now to keep up with the amount of people who aren't making enough to pay rents. So rents have skyrocketed. They've been being pushed out of their places. They've been living there for years because of landlords increasing the rent, and now there isn't enough low-income housing. And the solution is converting some of these office buildings to residential condominiums or multifamilies, but the government's taking too long to make these changes to fix what's happening. So we're going to have a collapse because the government intervention is preventing the free markets from actually being able to come up with and solve the problem.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it goes back to 2008, that we never really fixed the problem back in 2008. Instead, we printed money in paper. We didn't take the pain, right? And even now, I think that's the idea that our politicians would allow some pain to be felt. They just keep pushing it off into the future, and Americans are walking around, right? Like not us, not the people up there at Porkfest, right? Not you, Daniel, not you, Patrick, not Adam, not me, but most Americans are walking around in this state of oblivion, like, well, the debt doesn't matter. The banks don't. Banks are your money. It's that normalcy bias where they think, oh my, my money's safe in the bank, and the national debt doesn't really matter. But eventually, right, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It's that idea of normalcy bias or recency bias, where people, everything's was fine yesterday, everything seems fine today, so we're never going to have to pay the piper, but we're going to have to pay the piper.
Yeah. Can I take you a little bit further back in time, Ron?
Yeah.
I love
going
back to 2000. Let's go back to 2000 when Alan Greenspan was was actually goosing the stock market in 2000 and 2001, printing some $480 billion. And believe it or not, back in 2000, $480 billion was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ended up going into the stock markets, but it also went into the commercial banking system. It got fractionally reserved. And suddenly there was an enormous amount of quote unquote currency sloshing around the system, and it was looking for a home, and it went into real estate. So actually you could trace the etymology of the problems in 2008 all the way back to 2000 with Alan Greenspan actually printing I think it was 480 billion, I think is what it was. $480 billion. And that's what caused the housing crisis in 2008, by the way.
Yeah. Wait, hold on a second, Pat. Can you guys see the screen? We've got some. I have something I want to interject, Pat.
Sure.
Hold on. I don't know if you can see the screen.
There we go.
There we go. Is that the guy you're talking about?
That's Alan Greenspan. Yeah, that's him.
Read for me what Alan Greenspan said back in 1966 when he was a younger economist. Can you read that? I know it's a little blurry.
You bet I can see it. Quote, in the absence of a gold standard, there's no way to prevent confiscation of savings through inflation, end quote. Alan Green's scam. It's 1966, apparently.
Oh, hold on. Oh, that's California job openings. I'll read this one. This is another one from our friend Alan Green scam. Before he became, I guess, a proponent of paper money, he said, yet gold has special properties that no other currency, with the possible exception of silver, can claim. For more than 2 millennia, gold has had virtually unquestioned acceptance as payment. It has never required the credit guarantee of a third party. So that was when he was speaking the truth, right?
Yeah, but that was before he was, basically upper echelons of the American financial system.
Yeah.
So he was just an economist back then. And we had an economist on our show yesterday. He spoke the truth too. So apparently you start losing your morals when you actually climb the ladders of power in the financial system.
Because go ahead.
Ron, I'm going to have to get going. I got a speaking engagement here at 11 a.m. and I got to head over about 10 minutes early to get ready for that. So I'm gonna say goodbye. And Patrick and Adam can stick around for the basement dwellers. The basement dwellers, thank you very much. I'm not a crook, and we'll see you guys later.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
You're welcome.
And if people want to support Citizens for Sound Money, I've got a little ticker at the bottom of the screen there. Do you guys, Adam, Pat, do you feel like we're headed towards a major event? But I don't want to scare people. I don't want to be a tinfoil hat doomsayer. And I kind of felt 10 years ago we were headed towards a major event that would, could have drastic impact on the value of the U.S. dollar. Do you feel like it's like we're still heading in that direction?
I'll let Adam go first on that.
Yeah, I think we're in the event. I think we're in the event. Things are changing. I just don't think they're that bad. I'm not a doom and gloom guy.
Right.
Sound money is taking off. Gold is going up. Silver is going up. Bitcoin is exploding. Crypto is becoming more popular. You've got things around the world. You've got, there's good and there's bad. Maybe you like BRICS. Maybe you don't. Maybe you like the dollar. Maybe you don't. Maybe you like the way the monetary system is. We got a lot of options right now. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was back when we had the Great Depression because there weren't any options. We've got tons of different economy. We're the world's largest producer of food, exporter. We're the world's largest exporter of food. America's got a whole lot of things going for it. We got a whole lot of different monetary systems. We've got a whole lot more communication with the internet and with YouTube and with folks like yourself that are out there broadcasting to people, sounding the warning. And is there an event coming? I think this is it. We're in it. The gold's going up, silver's going up. Things are looking good, I think. Yeah. So I'm not a doom and gloom guy.
Can I do the? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
I want to interject one thing on that point. I agree with you, Adam. And it's interesting you say that because I read something the other day that this is the event. It is happening right now. And I would imagine that as past events unfolded throughout history, people didn't realize wow, I'm living through a historic event, right? But and I heard someone say this, and it just made sense with me on a gut level, like parts of the U.S. economy, like if you're a lower middle class person in the United States who doesn't know about silver and gold and who works 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to barely pay rent and barely afford a car and car insurance, you're already in a depression almost from an economic perspective. So I appreciate you bringing that up because I think maybe we don't recognize that we are in that. And wow, this really is happening right now.
You know what? We're going to good cop, bad cop yet here. You had the good cop here. I'm the bad cop. So I'm going to give you a slightly different perspective. And it's not all gloom and doom, not for everybody, but the dollar is what's failing here. The world reserve currency known as the dollar. And a lot of those dollars are going to come home. You talked earlier about Japan dumping treasuries or bonds. I can't remember which. But the fact of the matter is, eventually, these dollar roosters are coming home. Yeah. They're actually coming home. And those who are not prepared for that with gold, silver, Bitcoin, some kind of alternative, these folks are going to feel it the worst because America is ground zero for the economic collapse. But as Adam said, and now once again, I'll go back to the sunshine. What Adam said is those who prepare for it with alternative measures. And it could be, if you're still dealing in dollars, that's great. As long as you have assets, like for instance, you are selling eggs, you are selling meat, you are involved in the economy in that way, particularly in food, you'll be okay. You know, you may not be the richest guy on the planet, but you will weather the storm. So at any rate, those who are diametrically, opposed to, basically Bitcoin and gold and silver and think the dollar is the way to go, these people are really going to feel the hurt. They're really going to feel it. Those who have nothing but dollar denominated assets, hey, I'm okay. I got plenty of 3M stock. I'm going to be great. No, you got to diversify a little bit into alternative means, and gold and silver, and even as we were talking about Bitcoin, are valid alternatives to the dollar.
Yeah, I want to get your guys' opinion on this, because Pat, you bring up, I'm going to make it real simple. I think the whole system is created to created to confuse us, right? I mean, the whole try to understand what the Fed does, try to interest rates and dollar hegemony and the all this stuff. But if you really think about it on simple terms, right? We know that China, we know Russia, we know the BRICS countries, we can just say the rest of the world is moving away from the dollar, and in a couple different ways. They're moving away from it, from using it as a trade mechanism with de-dollarization in that perspective, but they're also selling their U.S. treasuries, right? So when they're selling and when they're not using the dollar, that means the dollar is less in demand, right? But all of that is happening right at a time where, if I pull up the U.S. debt clock and we look at that, the United States needs the world to need the dollar more than ever. So it's like two opposing forces that are moving in opposite directions. Anytime anything, whether you're talking about eggs, whether you're talking about oil, anything where there's more of a supply, right? There's all these dollars are coming home, right? Anytime there's any surplus, an excess supply, the value goes down. And when the value of the dollar goes down, right, the value of other real assets that are measured in fiat dollars goes up. Yeah.
All right. And David's coming too.
Hey, we have a special guest joining us.
Oh, great.
This is Eric Brakey, Senator Eric Brakey from the state of Maine, who is the new director of the Free State Project.
Okay.
And we're going to get a head of headphones. I don't know how far that'll reach. You might want to switch headphones. It might be better. Short distance there on that cable. And so we're talking doom and gloom here. We're talking about the collapse of the dollar. So this is Ron's basement. Are you familiar with Ron's basement?
Well, we got to talk yesterday, so I wasn't familiar with Ron's basement, I have to admit, but I, after talking with Ron, I'm very impressed by his monetary knowledge, and everyone else keeps telling me what a big deal Ron's basement is. So shame on me for not being familiar.
Yep, we all need to know who Ron is in Ron's basement, and the basement dwellers. Basically the people that believe, the believers in gold and silver.
I think, Ron, you're probably my second favorite Ron in the world at this point. So,
nobody
compete with Dr. Paul in my heart, but you're in a strong second.
the Rons are doing pretty good in the Sound Money. So, Eric, is it a state senator from Maine? Is that correct? Is that what Pat said?
That's right. I'm serving my third term in the state Senate, and I am leaving Maine, joining the Free State movement in New Hampshire to lead the Free State Project. And I will say, during my last term, on my way out, I just decided to go kind of gangbusters on monetary policy. I think I sponsored a number of bills in Maine to remove taxes on gold and silver, to recognize it as legal tender, and also some interesting stuff with a proposal for a state bank, some interesting things, also stuff around cryptocurrency and trying to stop CBDCs. So I will say, with Democrats in charge right now, we got close to some of them. We almost made it legal tender. We almost got rid of the sales tax, but the Democrat leadership came in and put the kibosh on some of these things at the last minute. But, we're getting the message out there, and I think in these times of high inflation, more and more people are realizing how important it is that government needs to remove these artificial barriers that prevent people from saving in real sound hard money.
Yeah. Wow. I want to throw in two quick things. And we already covered this. We were talking about the fact that this last wave of inflation, I think, woke a lot of people up. I mean, I can tell you from my channel, the Basement Dwellers, that we've got it grew exponentially as people realized that the value of their dollar is going down, but that we also, as we move, into the next like 4 or 5 years, we're going to get another wave of inflation, and that could really, really wake up a lot of people to the fact that they need to protect their wealth with things like silver and gold.
Hey, Ron, I want to introduce another special guest. We have Dr. David coming in here. How much time do we have left? And is it okay if I introduce him real quick? Or
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, no, we can go another 20
David.
minutes or so.
Okay,
that'd
good.
Be great.
This is Dr. David, and he's a huge sound money advocate for us. And just say hello, doctor.
Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Hey, Dr. David, welcome to the basement. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why. And we're trying to convince ourselves that we need to buy silver and gold. Any ideas on that subject?
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I've been watching precious metals for about 20 years. And, actually the whole liberty movement, precious metals, sound money, I got into around 2008 with the great financial crisis. I had just bought a house, and I remembered read an article by Ron Paul about a housing bubble in 2007. Actually, I read that in like 2005, and I bought the house later in 2005. And then we had the great housing crash. And I was like, whoa, who was this guy that predicted this housing bubble? And I started reading about his stuff, and I picked up his book, because his campaign book, Ron Paul, Revolution, a Manifesto. And it was his campaign book, and read principles about sound money, the Federal Reserve, and was hooked on the liberty movement ever since. Everything he said and wrote about made a lot of sense to me. And that's what kind of drew me in. And I had been dabbling in precious metals since the early 2000s. Watched it, when I watched things crash in 2008, silver went down to $9 an ounce. And I jumped in and bought some there, and then watched it run all the way up to 50, and then come all the way back down for a decade into the 20s. And that's when I started reading about manipulation going on by the bullion banks, particularly JP Morgan, on behest of the Federal Reserve, on behest of the federal government. And back then, 20 years ago, Ted Butler had been sounding the horn for about 10 years, and he was still considered, his theories were still considered rather fringe and, well, no. And a lot of people were trying to refute that. Fast forward to today, in the precious metals community, is accepted as fact.
Yeah.
I mean, JP Morgan's been taken to court, lost.
Isn't it amazing just how many things like Dr. Paul was mocked for saying 10 years ago, everyone has kind of come around, or at least anyone with any reason. It's like, wow, Ron Paul was right again and again and again.
As were the founding fathers when they wrote the guiding principles to which he adheres to.
Yeah. And I have I could pull it up. It's my audience has seen it many times. There's I think it was from WikiLeaks. There's a memo that was written in the mid 70s when they were setting up the futures exchanges for gold and silver, where they explicitly say, like, this will induce volatility into the silver and gold price, and it will discourage Americans from hoarding silver and gold. I mean, it's been proven that there's been a concerted effort to at least exert a certain amount of influence over the precious metals prices and to move. And that's why, we talked about this earlier, like, we're maybe 1 in 100 people, maybe 1 in 200 people in the United States right now that really know what's going on. Everybody else is asleep, in my opinion.
Unfortunately. And that's one of the great things that you guys are doing here, is bringing awareness to people that may not be aware about the dangers, the inherent dangers in our Federal Reserve banking system, the end of the petrodollar. Inflation is increasing, and it's going to get worse.
I wonder sometimes, as we see kind of a lot of the rest of the world beginning to shift away from the US dollar. I wonder sometimes, if we are putting Americans in a really dangerous spot where our government restricts and tries to discourage the American people from owning and possessing gold and silver through all of these laws and taxes and things like that. Are we really going to let the Russians be the ones who, buy up all the gold at these prices? Or,
Yeah.
you would think that we would want kind of the American people to have as much as possible for our own national security and our economic security.
That's interesting. You say, for our own national security. So it's interesting to think about that. If we don't have a sound money system, if we don't have sound economics, then it creates a national security risk.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that like if the dollar is, I mean, who knows? I mean, people have been predicting the death of the dollar for a long time, right? But certainly we do see at least some really symbolic things on the international stage that are, I think, some cause for alarm, or at least signs that things are starting to shift, like the Saudis breaking the petrodollar.
Petrodollar is done. It's
Yeah.
huge. We were talking about that for decades.
Yeah.
And it happened.
And I know people, I've seen people like Saifedean, the author of the Bitcoin Standard, have argued that, well, the petrodollar doesn't really mean what it used to, but it certainly seems to be symbolic of something, whether has a big direct effect on the U.S., on the dollar as the U.S. global reserve or not. It seems to be symbolic of something larger that is happening in the shift away from the dollar. And it seems to me that if that's the way that things are going, and our government, because they are so invested in trying to prop up the dollar, tries to discourage the American people from being able to diversify their monetary assets.
The average American under the bus try to save their unjust fiat currency system.
Then what they in effect are doing is ensuring that the American people are going to be the last ones to the game when it comes to having, precious metals and hard currency. And as far as our economic security, at a certain point, if we lose the dollar's global reserve status, and the American people do not have, in our country, a strong savings base in gold and silver, then we're going to be potentially at a real disadvantage compared to the rest of the world.
So they can sweep us to a CBDC. That's what they want. And that will be the end of liberty as we know it. That's why I value gold and silver. Most importantly, first and foremost, it protects our liberty, our freedom.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, Andy Sheckman loves to say, it's wealth. Gold and silver are wealth. It's the protection of our liberty. It's so important.
It's the end of liberty as we know it.
But no, that's a great point that I hadn't thought of, right? That it actually could probably be qualified as a national security issue, that 99% of Americans don't really have any real money in their possession.
That's why what you are doing, Ron, on Ron's Basement, having legislatures on your show and other people who are pro sound money, moving the sound money movement forward, getting legislation passed, getting legislation introduced, doing negotiations behind the scenes, like my good friend here, Pat Holland. Eric Brakey has been a sound money advocate going back probably when he was just a toddler.
Well, it took me a little bit longer than that to figure it out, but at least the last 14 years.
And by you having these people on your show and giving them exposure, and by what these gentlemen are doing, and Daniel Diaz with Citizens for Sound Money, what these guys are doing, they are securing liberty. It's where the rubber hits the road. Our founding fathers are shining and smiling down on these gentlemen because they're doing it in our time. They're carrying forward the principles that they taught us that we were supposed to adhere to maintain our liberty, and we've really lost it. I'm just so outraged by the Federal Reserve Act, by the Federal Reserve notes. It just makes me so damn angry. I'm really
well,
sorry.
I want to make you angrier for a second, if you don't mind. Here, I want to pull this up and read this. I don't know if you've seen this, or can you see it on the screen? Can you read it? Can you guys read this?
Absolutely. Woodrow Wilson regretted what he'd done when he signed the Federal Reserve Act. That's right.
I remember having a dream back in 2012, working on the Ron Paul campaign and thinking, if we get Ron Paul elected this year in 2012, 2013 is the 100-year anniversary of the creation of the Federal Reserve. And wouldn't it have been great if Dr. Paul, his first year in, ends the Fed on the 100th anniversary. Sometimes I regret, there's all these movies out there about the multiverse, and I regret that we're in the universe where Ron Paul didn't become president in 2012. And we're still living with this creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah, so I want to read this because I think it goes with what
Please
you guys
do.
are saying. This is Woodrow Wilson, and for our viewer, Woodrow Wilson, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but he was the president that signed the legislation that created the United States Federal Reserve Bank. And 3 years later or 5 years later, he said this, that, quote, "I'm the most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." And that was Woodrow.
I had no idea that he had some kind of deathbed conversion on this issue.
Yeah, yeah. And
Abraham Lincoln was very torn and felt very guilty about what kind of deals he had to do with the banks during the Civil War era.
Was this after Woodrow Wilson's stroke? I think some folks called it the stroke of good luck, when he was could no longer screw things up anymore when he was in the White House. Because
I have to dial it back a minute. You said the creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh yeah.
G. Edward Griffin is actually a fan of Goldback, and he's
awesome.
Yeah, we've been on his podcast and so forth. So it's funny that you said
that, just a few days ago here at Porkfest, because we have the main stage programming, for the adult attendees, right, with many great talks. But we've got so many families here. We've got the porcupines. And so we've been doing some like story reading and other things. So a few days ago, I read to them the Tuttle Twins and the creature from Jekyll Island, to all the kids like under the age of 10, because we gotta warn them young about the dangers of central banking and inflation. And anyway, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you, David.
Kids are getting into it.
See you, David. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, David. Oh, who's this guy?
I got a quick story about Dr. Dave here. So he's sitting right here on my left-hand side. It's because of Dr. Dave Schlera that Daniel Calzone and Daniel Diaz and I got together. And of course, also with Adam. And that was through your show, Ron.
Yeah.
Bringing the Sound Money folks together, the powerhouses, we're talking about legislation, Economic War Room in Texas, Missouri Freedom Initiative in Missouri, Citizens for Sound Money or National. We all got together because of your show. And so don't underestimate the power of Ron's Basement, folks.
Wow. Hey, the Basement Dwellers are awesome. Hey, Pat, I want to run out. I keep Silver Susie, who everybody here in the channel knows, my wife, the real boss here at Ron's Basement, she's not home, keeps texting me, telling me that I need to say hello to you guys, but also she wants me to go check on the silver and gold price. So you got a second so we can run out? We're going to run out to Pinback's website. Let's see how silver and gold are doing today. Wow. Hey, you guys are good luck. Silver's up 94 cents per ounce.
That's because Adam Van is here.
No,
yeah,
it's going to go down in history that Ron's basement was the glue that kept it all together.
I have to say, one of the things I love here at Porkfest is that people are accepting Goldbacks and accepting silver coins in payment for things. But I got to tell you, just knowing that these things are increasing in value, I just can't part with them. I keep handing over my Federal Reserve notes.
Your dirty, filthy fiats.
It's like,
let me right now,
you
guys were talking earlier about using gold and silver, and I'm like, I've been buying silver for 20 years and I've never sold an ounce or converted. Let me use the word convert, because we're not buying and selling. I'm converting. There still blows my mind that I can take paper money, right? Just pretty printed paper money, and convert that into real metal, right? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Eric, I want to also comment on something you said earlier about the young kids. And I'm hearing a lot from my contacts in the bullion industry that we've got a lot more young people, a lot more women, right? We don't have any women on the show today, but there are a lot more women coming into the gold and silver movement. I think that's because women are generally very interested in protecting their families. Oh, yeah. But we're also getting a lot more young people. And I want to point one more thing out about that young people is, I have twin 12-year-old identical twin daughters They play all kinds of games and have over the years on their tablets, their phones. Almost every game, what they're trying to collect are gold and silver coins, right? Like even from a young age, kids are taught that that silver and gold are like the most valuable thing to gather.
Yeah, Mario doesn't go around collecting paper notes, right? He's going around collecting gold coins.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And here at PORCFEST, here at PORCFEST, there's over 600 kids here, I think. I forget how many tickets were sold, but a bunch, hundreds and hundreds of kids, and they're all running around with their own little hustle. Some of them will take your trash. Some of them will come in and do help you out selling raffle tickets or something like that.
Yeah, or they're selling s'mores, packets and stuff like that. We certainly encourage entrepreneurship and especially kids learning lessons of entrepreneurship. So, boy, I have like kids walking away. It's like, I've made $200 here just like selling, things that they brought to sell at PORCFEST. And of course, it helps a little bit when a kid comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to buy this thing? It's hard to say no to like a cute kid trying to, be a little entrepreneur. So people tend to be pretty generous.
And I pulled up on the screen, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I pulled up the PORCFEST website, and it's not pork as in the meat, it's pork as in porcupine.
That's right.
Which I guess are abundant up in that area.
That's our mascot.
Yeah, porcupines are somewhat native to the area, but also it's like, the Republicans claim elephants, the Democrats claim donkeys, while the libertarian movement is larger than just any political party. We tend to associate with the porcupine, right? The porcupine open carries, right?
Yeah. But leave him alone. He won't hurt you.
But practices the non-aggression principle. I don't hurt you, or you don't hurt me, and I don't hurt you, right? And that's the libertarian credo. Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff.
Yeah. Family friendly, talks and panels, parties. Look at that. Looks like you guys are
actually, can I do a shameless plug?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. In honor of Ron Paul, tomorrow night we are having End the Fed happy hour right here in the Sound Money tent.
Wow.
And complete with cheese and wine, and we're going to do some auctions as well for some silver and gold. So that's a big deal over here. Anyone who is watching Ron's Basement that is actually at PORCFEST right now, please come by the tent for this extraordinary event. But not only that, right before Ron Paul speaks, right over there in that pavilion, about 50 feet away from us, we're going to be selling burritos. So actually big burritos. And we'll be doing that on Saturday morning, right before Ron Paul speaks. So shameless plug over.
At that happy hour, is that where we're going to do it? We're going to end the Fed there?
Yeah, that's the end the Fed happy hour. We're celebrating silver and gold.
It has to start somewhere.
Yes, it starts right here in the Sound Money tent, right here at PORCFEST 2024.
And a great reminder to everyone, you too can end the Fed by just
thinking
diversifying and not being so dependent on the paper notes that they put out there. And
I want to do a shameless plug too. Now that we're in the rhythm of it, this was Father's Day weekend, and congratulations to you guys. Happy Father's Day
to you too.
I'm not a dad yet, but
I thought you were already. You've got
maybe once my wife and I get our first house in New Hampshire, we'll start.
You've got it in you, brother.
All right.
So
is that how it works?
Yeah,
I'm waiting. We're just waiting for the stork to show up.
I want to say thank you to my children. Belle and Declan came out to PORCFEST for the first part of the week, even though I'm working, and they celebrated Father's Day with me and got me a mug, and it was a really good weekend. I just want to say thank you to my kids, and happy Father's Day, Ron. Hope you had a great one. You've got some great kids and a great family over there too.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I want to thank you guys for being on today, Pat, Adam, Eric, and thank you for everything you guys are doing to help spread the word out there about sound money. And, that's all we can do, right, is put the information out there. It's up for people to listen to us, listen to other people, and come up with their own kind of thesis on where things are going. But I do know that in our hearts, and I believe also in our minds, that and according to our calculators, that there's a big benefit for people right now to move to sound money, silver, gold, platinum, whatever it may be.
Isn't that interesting? A deflationary currency.
And if I could add, since these two gentlemen have done their shameless promotions, I would just like to invite your guests to go check out fsp.org, which is the website for the Free State Project, which hosts the Porcupine Freedom Festival. We also have another banner event every year called the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. And our mission at the Free State Project, we are a mass migration movement of people who love liberty moving to New Hampshire to establish a liberty homeland. We've been at it for 20 years, and New Hampshire is ranked in the Freedom of the 50 States Index, the #1 state for freedom in America when it comes to economic and personal liberty. We're for the whole package.
Yeah.
And, you know, as folks move to sound money, you can also consider moving to New Hampshire. We would love to have you, or at least come up for a visit to PORCFEST in the future, or the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, or any time of year. We got great events in the community going on all the time. You can learn about it at fsp.org. So thank you for letting me do my shameless plug.
Sounds good, guys. Enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you for all you're doing. Okay. And I'll be looking forward to seeing all of you next time.
Hey, love you, Ron. Love the Basement Dwellers. You guys are awesome.
You got the best fans. I'm telling you.
Thank you to my
reading the comments, and what a bunch of gentlemen.
Yep.
What wonderful people, ladies.
And hello to Susie.
Yes. Thank you, Silver Susie.
Thank you to my second favorite, Ron.
That's all right. All right, guys. Have fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
Okay.
God
All
bless
right.
you guys.
Okay.
Happy
Bye-bye.
PORCFEST, everybody.
All right, guys, there we have it. What a great group of people. It is so critical, right, as we look at what's going on in the world right now on a worldwide geopolitical basis. When we look at what's going on internally in the United States, right, with the economy, with the monetary system that we're dealing with the Fed, with the financial fiscal situation that we're dealing with our government. Look, I'll never tell you what to do. I'll never tell you I have a crystal ball, but for me, at least, when I look at the big picture of what's going on, I certainly feel comfortable owning precious metals. I feel even more comfortable telling you that I appreciate you joining us here in the basement. On behalf of Susie and myself, thank you. Please consider supporting our sponsors. This is not possible without the support of our sponsors. Pimbex, remember, they check all the boxes if you're looking to get yourself some silver, gold, or platinum. And First Mining Gold, the Canadian Gold Development Company, firstmininggold.com. Fortuna Silver, gold and silver producer with big operations in Latin America and West Africa. You can learn more about them at fortunasilver.com. Of course, thank you, right? Hey, good day today in the silver and gold market. Let's hope it stays up, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.